Hello everyone. Today I will be reviewing The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. This is arguably the most famous opening lines to any of the fantasy novels out there. What Tolkien began with these simple words expanded into a much grand and epic tale that we know today as Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit is set in Middle-earth. Story follows our protagonist Bilbo Baggins going for an epic adventure along with 13 dwarves to retrieve a treasure which is guarded by a dangerous dragon, Smaug the Magnificent. Now I know how this sounds. There is a dragon, there is a treasure. It sounds like a total cliche, and you have a good reason to believe so. The fantasy tropes are used so much and so frequently that they have become cliches. But believe me, this is not the case here. In fact, it wouldn't be wrong to say that Tolkien was the one who created many of these fantasy tropes. The Hobbit is one of the most original books in fantasy that you will ever read. In the story, we get a glimpse of the history about the dragon and the treasure, about how the mighty and the beautiful dwarf kingdom Erebor was brought down by the dragon Smaug, and how the dwarves suffered after that, how they roamed robbed of their homelands, and how nobody helped that day, not even the elves. We get a glimpse of the rivalry between the dwarves and the orcs too. The journey of Bilbo and the dwarves to the lonely mountain full of adventure, and they go through many difficulties to get there. And to finish it off, there is an epic battle at the end of the book. The book does a very good job in developing the characters, especially the main character Bilbo Baggins. We can experience his development from a comfort-loving hobbit to a hobbit who almost died in a battlefield. The book also has many other fantastic characters, such as the famous wizard Gandalf, who is famous across the fantasy genre. You'll also come across several poems and songs across the book, which Tolkien has used to give a slight comical touch to the book. That's how Tolkien writes, and it is amazing. It does an amazing job to add to the overall appeal of the book. The book was originally written as a children's book, so most of the scenes as well as the prose here is written in the form that will appeal to the children, and thus easy to read and follow. Now don't get me wrong here. The fact that this book was targeted at children in no way makes the book less enjoyable for adults. I'll even go so far as to recommend this book to the adults who are looking for a solid start in reading fantasy, especially into the Tolkienian fantasy. Coming to the world building, Tolkien is the master of world building. The world building is just amazing. You'll come across various races and species in the Middle-earth, such as hobbits, elves, dwarves, and many more. Some of the races used by Tolkien in Hobbit may not sound very new to you. That's because of their heavy use in many modern fantasy books. But again, Tolkien was the one who originally created most of them. After reading this, I felt that this 400 odd pages of a novel was worth every second of my time. So for the people who are looking to get into reading fantasy, The Hobbit is a solid entry point. And I say this because this easy to read book lays the foundation for The Lord of the Rings, the granddaddy of all fantasy novels. The Lord of the Rings is a much more serious and a high fantasy series, and it's not at all aimed at children, it's not at all targeted towards children. The fame of Tolkienian fantasy is unmatched even today. I mean, people literally study Tolkien's books and have a degree in Tolkien studies. Now that speaks for itself. And for those of you who have watched the Hobbit movies and didn't like them, please do not judge the book by the movies. And for those of you who like the movies, better, you will like the book even more. And the journey of the Middle-earth does not stop here. Tolkien has written many more epic novels, which I will surely discuss in the future. Till then, happy reading.